Hi guys, it's me Terry of the Yarnjoy podcast. Welcome to another tutorial. In this tutorial I'm going to show you how I like to do the corner to corner stitch. This is just going to be a basic corner to corner stitch that's going to form a square shape, okay? And I thought maybe it might be easier if you can kind of see a picture of how this square shape, or how this corner to corner stitch, how it forms the shape that you want. Okay, so I made this grid here. All I did is took some grid paper and I drew a square, because in this tutorial I want it to end up being a square. Okay, you can do this stitch and do rectangular shaped blankets, but I think the easiest one to start out with is a square shape. Okay, and so I just drew a grid, 9 squares by 9 squares. Okay, so this is just going to be a swatch, I guess you'd say. So I've got my yarn and I've got a needle, not needle, the hook, crochet hook, and a marker. Okay, you won't always need a marker. Once you get the hang of doing corner to corner, then it will be easy for you to do it and to find your stitches. I'm just using a marker to help those beginners that have never done the corner to corner stitch before, to help find some of the stitches. Okay, so we're going to start out with a slip knot. Okay, make a slip knot. Okay, so in this corner to corner stitch I'm going to be using double crochet stitches. Okay, you can do corner to corner using other stitches. If you want a tighter stitch or a smaller piece, you can use half double crochets instead, but usually the basic stitch, the most common, is using double crochets, so that's what I'm going to use. Okay, so we got our slip knot and we're going to chain 6. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, we have 6 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So in our 4th chain from the hook, we're going to put our first double crochet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, right there in this chain. So I'm going to pinch that right there because that's where my hook needs to go. So yarn over, go into that 4th chain from the hook and make a double crochet. Okay, and then we're going to yarn over, and see we have two more chains left here from our beginning chain 6, so we're going to put 1 double crochet in each of those chains. So 1 in that one, and then 1 in this one, and this is our first square. Okay, each square consists of 4 stitches. Well, the first one is the chain 3 turning chain, but it counts as the first double crochet. Okay, and then you have 3 other remaining double crochets to make your square. Okay, so this square is actually the first square in our little grid here. Okay, to make our square blanket. Okay. And the way the stitches are made, they're made up in a group. It's a grouping of squares, and you do it in a serpentine type. I think it's serpentine. Is that right? Direction. Okay, and so we've got this one that we just created is the first square of that grid. Okay, so since we're going in a diagonal, because it's from corner to corner, okay, and since we're going in diagonals to make that corner, the next one will have 2. See how this one's got 2 squares that we're going to make our next line, our next row. Okay, so here's where our marker comes in. We take our marker and we mark this chain 3 space right here. Okay, seems kind of simple to do that right now because you only have 1 square, but I think it'll help once we have more squares on there and you have to keep track of them. Okay, so there's our marker around that chain 3 space, or chain 3. Okay, so now we're going to get ready to do the second row. So this one is going to have 2 squares in it. Okay, so we start just like we did the very first one, the very first, and we chain 6. Okay, and I want to show you a little tip on how I know I can find the chain the one I'm going to do and put my first double crochet in for the square is I go like this. Okay, so I chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then I take my thumb and middle finger there and I pinch that third one because this is the third chain. Okay, so that's where that double crochet is going to go. So now that's the third chain, so now I got to chain 3 more, so that's 4, 5, and 6 because I'm chaining 6 all together. Okay, but see how I'm pinching that third chain, the third one that I formed. So when I yarn over and put my double crochet in there, it's going to go into that chain. Now you don't have to do that. I mean, what it is, it's the 4th chain from the hook. So 1, 2, 3, 4. See, it's the 4th chain from the hook. So I'm going to double crochet into that chain. Okay, so see, I'm making another of these squares, and remember the squares have a chain 3 and then 3 double crochets to make that little square. So there's the first double crochet, and the second one will go into that chain. Okay, and then the third one will go into that chain, and that's going to form another little square. Okay, so now it looks like that. Okay, so this is where the marker comes in, because what we do is we take that square and we're going to flip that work up. Okay, see how I did it up? Okay, I'll do it again. See, it's like that. Okay, I'm going to flip up this square, and that's going to make that marker be up there on the top. Okay, so that's where I'm going to slip stitch. I need to slip stitch into that space that was formed from the chain 3 and the first double crochet. See that? So I'm going to put my hook into that hole there. That's between those two, the chain 3 and the first double crochet, and I'm going to do a slip stitch, and that's going to join my 2 squares together. See that? Okay, so now I'm going to take this marker off because I'm going to need it in just a minute. I need to put it in a different place. Okay, so now remember, like I said, this row has got to have 2 squares in it. So that's the first one we just made. This one here is our very first one, which is the very corner. Okay, so now we need a second one. So in order to make that one, we need a chain 3 and 3 double crochets, because that's what a square is always consisting of when we're using double crochets, of course. So chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and put 3 double crochets, and you're just going to go around that chain 3 space. Okay, I mean that chain 3. So there's 1 and 2 and 3 double crochets. Okay, so see, that made another square. Okay, now we take our marker again and we put the marker around that chain 3. Okay, so now if we look at our grid, we just made the second row of our grid. Okay, so that one would be this one and this one. Okay, so see, looks like the picture. Okay, so now the next row is going to have 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this is the beginning square. The beginning square, we always chain 6. 1, 2, 3, and then I pinch that third one. 4, 5, 6. Okay, and where I pinched, that's where the stitch needs to go. So yarn over and do our double crochet into that stitch. And that chain, sorry. So there's the first one, and remember it's a chain 3 and 3 double crochets. So there's the first double crochet, the second one, and the third one, and that makes another square. Okay, so now we're going to see where our marker is. We need to flip our work up, so then that marker is going to be up at the top, see? And then that shows you where you need to put your slip stitch into. See, because right now they're not connected. We need to connect it, okay? It's like we're making a little staircase. Okay, so now we've connected it. Now we can take that marker out. And now we continue on. So now remember, this row has got 3 squares in it. So that was our first one. Now we got to make the one in the middle. So 1, 2, 3. We chain 3, and then we do 3 double crochets around that chain 3 loop, or whatever you want to call it, of the square below it. 1, 2, 3. Okay? Okay, now we need to connect it to this top step of our staircase. I like to call it, it's like little stairs, so I call it steps, I guess. Okay, so I slip stitch to it, and what I slip stitched is that chain 3. Okay, so now I'm going to chain 3 up because I'm going to make a new square, my third one of this row. Okay, and then remember, it's chain 3 and 3 double crochets, and it's going to go around that loop there. So here's the 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, 3 double crochets. Okay, so now we have 3. 1, 2, 3. So that would be this one we just finished. So that's 1, 2, see that? 3. Okay, so now we've got 3 done. Okay, so the next one is going to have 4. It's going to have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So we take our marker before we start that next row, and we put the marker around this last square that we did. We put it around that chain 3. The chain up 3. Okay, so now we're ready to do our 4th row, and see it's going to, yes, our 4th row, and it's going to have 4 squares. 1, 2, 3, 4. So remember, the beginning square of every round, or every row, you start with a chain up 6. 1, 2, 3, and then I like to pinch that 3rd chain. 4, 5, 6. Okay, now I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to put a double crochet into that chain we pinched, which is the 4th chain from the hook. Okay, so there's our chain up 3, and then our 3 double crochets. This is the first one, and then the second one goes into the next chain of the chain up 6 that we did, and then the third one will go into that remaining chain of the chain up 6 that we did. Okay, so now it looks like that. Okay, now we're going to take our work and we're going to flip it up, so then that marker is going to be up at the top. Okay, and that's going to show us where we need to connect with our slip stitch. Okay, so we just go into that hole, which is between this chain up 3 where we put our marker and the first double crochet next to the one next to it. So we put it right between the two into that loop. It looks like a loop, and we do our slip stitch to connect it. Okay, now we can take our marker out, and we're going to chain up 3, and we're going to make a square. So there's our chain up 3. Now we need 3 double crochets, and we're going to do them all around that chain up 3 loop. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now we need to join this, we need to connect it to make our little stair step, right? So we're going to connect it to the chain up 3 loop of this square by sticking the hook between the chain up 3 and that double crochet, and we do our slip stitch to connect it. See? And so we've got to do another step, because remember, we're going to do 4 in this row. So 1, 2, and this is our third one. So chain up 3, and we got to do 3 double crochets to go with that chain up 3. So there's 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then you're going to slip stitch around this chain up 3 of this square. So then it'll connect it. Okay, Now we have one more, because remember that we have to do 4 in this round. So there's 1, 2, 3, and we got one more to go. Well, not a round, it's a row. Okay, so champ 3, 1, 2, 3. That's our first one. And then the 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then since we're at the top and we ended those, that's the last one we're going to do for that row, I take my marker and I put it around this chain 3 space. Not space, sorry. The chain up 3, we put it around there, see? And that helps us to find it when we flip it up, okay? Okay, so now if we look at our grid, we have done 1, let me get here where you can see it, okay? We've done 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 4 of them now. So if we look at our little grid here, we've done this row. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So see, our stair steps are getting bigger, right? So the next row we're going to do, there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in our row, okay? So that's how you do it. So if you need to rewind and go back and see how I did it again, then feel free. So I'm going to continue on until I get to where I have 9 right here. See how this one's got 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to keep repeating what I was doing, and each row will have one more. Okay, and I'm going to keep going until I have 9 squares across, and that's going to be our halfway mark of this square. So what you do is, if you can either decide how many squares across you want to make it, or you can even do by measurements. You can measure it and say, well, I want my blanket to be a baby blanket, I'll say. So for a baby blanket, normally it's about 36 inches square. So if I want 36 inches square, that means it'd be 36 inches each side. So I'll keep increasing this, okay, until I get a side that's 36 inches, okay? And that will be like the 36 inches would be like one side, or the bottom, yeah, the bottom side, or 2 sides of it really, because it'd be 36 inches this way and 36 inches this way. And once it reaches that, if I want a 36-inch square, then I will start doing decreases to get the other half of it, okay? So I will keep continuing on. So my next row is going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the next one will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. See, each time you do it, you're going to have one more square per diagonal row, okay? So you just keep doing that, and I'll meet back up with you when I have 9 squares across, because that's the little swatch I'm doing, okay? So either rewind this and watch how I did the rows again to see how you're supposed to do it, or you can just pause it right here and get your swatch, so then you'll have 9 rows across. Not 9. Yes, 9, but 9 squares. 9 squares diagonally, and then I'll meet up with you, and then we will do the decrease to finish off our square. Okay? Okay, so I continued on until now I have 9 squares across, counting diagonally. I have 9 squares, okay? So that goes along with this square swatch that I wanted to do. Now, like I was mentioning just a while ago, that this happens to measure 7 inches. So say, oh, I want to make a 7-inch square, okay? So you just continue on until each of these straight sides equals 7 inches, okay? So like I just said, that if you want a baby blanket and you want it to be 36 inches square, then you just keep continuing increasing your little stair steps until you get this 2 straight sides that are 36 inches, okay? Now we've got our two sides of our square the size that we want it. Now we need to start decreasing, so then that way when we end up get to this corner, because we're doing corner to corner, that it will be a square shape. Okay, so now for this example, I have 9 squares being the midpoint, okay, the largest that I want to go. Okay, so that means now the next row I'm going to start decreasing, and I should have 8 squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so 8 squares. So in order to decrease, we're going to do this. Okay, so before, as we were increasing, I would chain 6 and make our square. I would put my marker here. Oops. I can still do that. We'll put the marker here, which is the last square that we did on that row. Okay. Okay, so before I would chain 6, flip the work up, and then make the square, right? Okay, so this time I don't want to do that, because I don't want this side to get any higher. Okay, say if I was doing a baby blanket, it's already 36 inches, so I don't want to go any further up. So what I need to do is I need to decrease. So I need to start making that straight side. Okay, so the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to chain 1 only. Okay, now I'm going to turn my work. Okay, so now my square, my marker is up here, right? Okay, so what I need to do is I need to get my hook in the loop that I'm working with. I need to get it up here. Okay, so this is a straight edge I want to work. So what I want to do is I'm just going to slip stitch my way up these 1, 2, 3 stitches in order to get into this turning chain. Okay, that chain 3. Okay, so I'm going to slip stitch in the first one. Okay, so that's 1 double crochet. I got a slip stitch in that next one. Okay, I'm going to zoom you up just a little bit. Okay, okay, so now I need to slip stitch. See, I've got 2 more stitches there, so I need to slip stitch into this one. Okay, and then I'm even going to slip stitch, but now instead of going into that hole like I normally did, I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch into the top of that chain 3. Okay, so slip stitch. Okay, so see, now it's got a nice straight edge there. Okay, so now I'm going to go up, and my first square is going to be where this marker is. I'm going to go around that chain 3 space just like we did before. Okay, so I can go ahead and take the marker out because I know where I need to go. So in order to do that, I'm going to go ahead and make my regular square, which, you remember, it's a chain 3 and 3 double crochets. So I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to do 3 double crochets around that chain 3 right there. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, so there's my first square, and now I'm going to keep going up the steps. And remember, I had 9 on this last row. Now I'm going smaller, so I want 8 squares. I need to get 8 squares. So there's 1, and now remember, you have to connect it. So I'm going to slip stitch into this chain 3 loop there. Okay, now I got to do another square, so this will be my second one. 1, 2, 3, chain up 3, and 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so there's my second one. Okay, and see how it's split. So I've got to connect it up to this step of my little stairs. Okay, so there's 1, 2, right? 1, 2, so I need 6 more because I need to make 8 altogether. So 1, 2, 3, that's a chain up 3, and 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and I have to connect it to this step. And remember, to connect it, you put your hook between the chain 3 champ 3 and the first double crochet that's next to it. Okay, so now I got to make another one. So champ 3, 1, 2, 3, 3 double crochets, and they're all going to go around this chain 3 loop. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Okay, so that's 4. I'm halfway through that row. So I'm going to slip stitch to connect it to that step. And I'm going to go up 3, 1, 2, 3, and make another square. So that's 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now I've got to connect it to this one with a slip stitch just into that chain 3 loop. And then another square to be made now. 1, 2, 3, chain 3, and then 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now I got to connect it to this one with a slip stitch right into that loop, that hole there, that where that loop is. Slip stitch. Okay, and then 1, 2, 3, making another square. Chain 3, I did the chain 3, sorry, and now double crochet 3 times. So that's the first double crochet, second double crochet, third double crochet. Okay, now I got to connect it to this step. Okay, with a slip stitch. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now before, remember our last one, well, let me go ahead, I got to connect it to this one because see how it's just hanging out there. So I got to connect it with a slip stitch like that. Okay, now it's connected. Now before we had to do a top step or top square, but we don't want it to get any bigger. We've already got the 9 squares, or if you want to do measurement wise, we've already done our 7 inches for this 7-inch square. Or you can imagine doing a baby blanket, you've already got your 36 inches. So you don't want it to get any bigger, because if you did, you would be on this grid, you would be coming out of that square. Okay, because remember, as we're getting smaller, we got to do 1 less square per row, so then we can get down to this other corner. Okay, so let's go and count and see if we should have 8. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. See, we got our 8, so we don't want to go any further. Okay, so if we look at our grid paper, I'll go ahead and color in my 8. And like I said, you don't have to do the grid. I was just thinking that if you saw how the blanket was growing and then decreasing, that it will kind of help you to see what shape it's forming to make the square. Okay, once you get hooked, you get the hang of this stitch. Of course, you wouldn't be doing this. You would just go to the width that you want your finished square to be, and then you start decreasing, okay, to get back down to this corner. Okay, so there we go. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and that's what we have here. We counted and we had 8. Okay, so now we want to keep this a straight edge, so we don't want to add a square there, but we need to get back to this end here so then we can go down. Okay, so the way we do that is we're going to chain 1 and then we're going to turn. Oh, and then like I said, you don't need the marker anymore. I think by now you probably know where you need to put your hook. Okay, so what I'm going to do is chain, like I said, I chained 1, and now I'm just going to turn the whole entire work over. Okay, so now we're going to just work along that edge to keep that edge straight. Okay, so the way we do that is we do slip stitches, and see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches in to make this square right there. So we're just going to do a slip stitch down that top, so then we can get over here so we can do our next little square. So slip stitch into that first one, slip stitch into the next stitch, slip stitch into the next stitch, and then go ahead and instead of just going into this chain 3 loop, I want to go ahead and slip stitch into the top of that chain 3, because that helps to keep my edge more straight, my top edge. Okay, so now we're ready to make our next square. So we're gonna need to make it, go ahead and put it in the stair step shape, and we're gonna chain 3 and make our first box. So there's chain 3, and then here's our chain 3 loop that we want to work our 3 double crochets around. So double crochet 3 times, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and now we're going to need to connect it, and we're going to connect it to this step in our little staircase here, our little steps. Okay, so then we connected it. Okay, now remember that the last row that we did 8 squares. So now this one we're going to do 7 squares. Okay, so each one is going to be 1 less square. So actually once you get to the halfway point, then you start decreasing and getting smaller each time. It works faster because you're getting smaller instead of growing your stitches. Okay, so we need to make 7 squares across. So that was our first one that we just did. So now 1, 2, 3, do the same thing for our squares. So double crochet 3 times, 1, 2, 3. Okay, now we got to connect it to this next stair step here by just inserting our hook between the chain 3 and the double crochet, that loop, and doing a slip stitch, and then chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Now you're making your next little step or square by doing a chain 3 and then 3 double crochets. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, now we have to connect it, because see how it's split open there, so we got to connect it to this next step by doing a slip stitch. Okay, and then we're going to do our next one. 1, 2, 3. Whoop, lost my hook. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and then 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then we connect it by doing a slip stitch up to that next step up. Okay, and then we do chain 3, 1, 2, 3, 3 double crochets to make our next square. 1, 2, 3. And then connect it with a slip stitch. Okay, and then chain 3, 1, 2, 3, 3 double crochets to make our next square. Okay, and then we're going to connect that one, because see how it's split, so we're going to connect it to make our little steps. Okay, and then we're going to do, see how we have, this is our edge, our straight edge. It does end up being just a little bit wonky, wavy, but what's good is that you can put a border around the whole entire thing, and I'll show you a picture of one that I did in a little bit, and that will be straightened out. Okay, so as you can see, we need to make one more so we can continue this straight edge across. So chain 3, 1, 2, 3, 3 double crochets to make our little square. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then we need a slip stitch up into that to connect it. Okay, so there we go. Now let's count and see how many we have. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that would be on our grid here, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So see, the next one we will have 6. Okay, so here we are, and we have to get back over here so then we can go down our steps. And so the way we do that is we chain 1, okay, and then we turn our work over, okay, Okay, now we're going to go across this box, this square right there. Remember, there's 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 stitches, a chain 3, and 3 double crochets, right? So you have 4 stitches in that little box. So we need to slip stitch across that top so we can get over here to this edge, because this is the straight edge that we're making. So slip stitch into the first one, slip stitch into the next one, slip stitch into the next one. Okay, and then slip stitch, slip stitch in the top. That kind of helps get that edge straightened out. So we slip stitch into the top of that chain 3. Like that. Okay, so now we're going to turn our work to the side this way, so that way we can see our stair steps that we're going to go up. Okay, so making our first box, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then double crochet 3 times around that little loop there. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, so there's our box and our little square, and then we're going to connect it to this step up in our little piece here. So we connect it with a slip stitch by putting the hook between that chain 3 and the next double crochet. Okay, and then just doing a slip stitch around it, and then chain up 3, 1, 2, 3, and then make your next square by doing 3 more double crochets, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then you connect it with a slip stitch up to this next step up. Okay, and so now you just keep going, making those squares. You keep going until I get to the top, and then I'll do another decrease with you at the top. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm getting up to the top of my little stair steps again, and remember, this row has got to have 6 squares. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 1 more to make, which is going to be right up there at the top. So as you see, I just did the 5th one. I need to connect it to that little stair step there by putting your hook between the chain 3 and the first double crochet in that little loop that it makes. Do our slip stitch, and then chain up 3, 1, 2, 3, and then do 3 double crochets around that little loop there to make our last square of this row. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now all I got to do now is connect it to this top step of my little stair steps here. So connect it by sticking my hook between the chain 3 and the first double crochet of that square and doing a slip stitch. Okay, so now it's connected. So now if we look at our picture and and count our squares here, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we look at our picture and we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I'll color that in real quickly. Try not to be too messy about it. Okay, so that's what our piece looks at, and see how it's getting smaller, and we're just filling in that space, but we're still keeping the square shape. Okay, so our next row has got to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See, and then the next one will have 4, and then we'll do 3, and then we'll do 2, and then we'll do 1 in the corner, and we'll be done. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'll get you started on this square by slip stitching across, and I'll get you started, and then I'll stop the or you can pause until you get I'm gonna pause, and you can pause and keep working your decreases until you get to where you only have, I'll do a couple more rows, and I'll show you where you have let's see, 3 across. 3 will have 3, so I'm going to do this one where I'll end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares. Oh, you know, see what I'm doing, sorry. So we'll have 5 squares, and then I'll turn and I'll do another decrease where you do 4 squares, and then I'll meet up with you, and then we'll finish it. We'll finish up the end. Okay, oh sorry, let's go ahead and we'll do this. Well, we're going to turn it around and slip stitch across to get you started down the other side. Okay, so we're going to chain up 1 because we don't want to go up any further. We want to keep this straight edge, so we chain up 1, turn our work okay? And then we're going to slip stitch across here, and remember there's 4 stitches in that square, so we need to slip stitch 4 times. 1, and then 2, which is slip stitch in the next one, slip stitch in the next one for 3, and then slip stitch into the top of the chain 3 space for 4. Okay, now we're going to turn our work so we can see our stairs. Okay, and then we're going to chain up 3 and make our first square. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that's the first step in our little stair steps here. So we're going to slip stitch into this next step to connect it. Okay, now I'm going to go keep working until I have I'm going to finish this row, which will have 5 squares, and then I'll go ahead and do the next row where I'll have 4 squares across, and then I'll meet you back up and we'll finish it. We'll go to the end together. Okay, so I just finished this row, and I'm looking, and I'm counting here. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on my grid I went ahead and shaded it up, and I have 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now my next, all I have left is this little corner, which will be 3, 1, 2, 3 in the next row, and then 2, 1, 2, and then 1 in the little corner, and we'll be done. So like I said, I just finished the row where I ended up with 4 squares, okay, and I went ahead and connected the little square to that square that was there. Okay, so now I need to chain 1, turn my work, and slip stitch across that edge to get to this corner so I can start going down. So there's 4 stitches in that square, so I need to slip stitch 4 times. 1, and then 2 for that one, and then 3, number 3 goes into that stitch, and then number 4 will go into the top of the chain 3. Okay, so now I'm ready. So now I turn my work so I can see my little stairs. I'm going to go up the stairs. Okay, pull out some yarn here. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, make a square. So I'm going to need the chain up 3 and 3 double crochets. So 1, okay, 2, 3. Okay, attach it to this one with a slip stitch, and then go up the next step. 1, which is a chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then slip stitch into the next step. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3 double crochets. Okay, so now all I have to do is connect it to this one, which is, like I said, you put your hook in between the chain 3 and the first double crochet and slip stitch around it. Okay, so now if I look, I've got 1, 2, 3, so I've got 3 squares that I did. So that would take care of 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so see, the next one needs 2. Okay, so still decreasing, so I don't want to go up any further. I need to chain 1, turn my work over, slip stitch across that top to square up that square right there, so then I can get into this area right here to start my next row. So slip stitch 4 times to go across this top, 1 in each stitch. So 1, and then 2, and then the next one I'm going to have the 3rd slip stitch, and then at the top of the chain 3 I'm going to have the 4th slip stitch. Okay, now I'm going to turn my work so I can see the stairs. And then chain 3, 1, 2, 3, do 3 double crochets to make my square, along with that chain 3, of course. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, and now I need to connect it to this step with a slip stitch. Okay, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, 3 double crochets to make my square. 1, 2, 3. There's that square. All I need to do now is attach it to this top step up there with a slip stitch. Okay, see, now I've got 2. So go over here to my paper and see, we just did the 2. So we did the 1 and 2. We did those 2. All those in, and see, now I just have one left. Complete our square. Okay, so chain 1, turn it. Now we're going to slip stitch across that side, which has got 4 because of the 4 stitches in that square. So it's going to be 1, and then the second one go in that stitch, and then you get the third one to go in the next stitch, and then the fourth one will go into the top of the chain 3. Okay, turn it to see our little step, or well, now it's just that little empty corner there. We're going to fill it in by putting another square. So chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then yarn over and double crochet 3 times into that loop to finish our little square. So 1, 2, 3, and now see how it's split. So we need to detach it by doing a slip stitch, putting the hook in between the chain 3 and the first double crochet into that loop there, and slip stitch. Okay, and then that's it. If we look, we can see that our square is complete. So on our grid, that means we just finished. Whoop, let me turn my pencil around. We just finished that square, that grid. See? Okay, so there's our square. So, like I said, if we were saying that we wanted to do a 7-inch square, we would have just increased until we got to 7 inches, which just this happens to be 7 inches by 7 inches, and then we start decreasing down to fill out the rest of our square. Let me zoom out a little bit so you can see my square. Whoop, wrong direction there. Okay, so there's my square. Okay, so now all you do is finish that off. You cut your yarn, finish it off, and you're done. Okay, so there's your square. Okay, now I did this in a solid color, but what's really neat about this, or cool, or whatever you want to say, is you can use self-striping yarn. That's a very easy way to get some more color into your blanket by doing a corner to corner, but still not having to change colors. Okay, so if you get some self-striping yarn like the Super Saver stripes, like this one happens to be retro stripe, which would be this, or the mandala cakes work well too because they're self-striping, although the color changes are longer in that. That would work if you were making a blanket that was going to be a larger size, corner to corner. Now I did do one, a few months back. I had some Premier Sweet Roll yarn in spearmint pop, and so I just did a corner to corner, and then this is how it turned out. Let me show you. I don't have a picture, I don't have it anymore, but there's the picture. And it was just this, this was Bernat, I'm not Bernat, sorry, Premier Sweet Roll that I got at Joann's in the spearmint pop. So I just did the corner to corner, and it just did that its own thing, doing the self-striping. Okay, and then with this particular one, I only had 2. I think I had 2 cakes of it, and so what I did is I just increased until I finished the first cake. And then I attached the next cake and started decreasing to get the other half. So that way I used both cakes. It was still a little bit on the small side, so what I did is I just did a granny stitch. If you can see that, ooh, it gets blurry when I make it go up further, but I did a granny stitch border around the whole entire thing, and then a shell stitch to finish it off, to enlarge it. But anyway, that's an example of a corner to corner that you could do. Or what happens when you use self-striping and do the corner to corner stitch. So anyway, there you go. Oh, I show you now. This was I'll show you. I just did a piece of it. It's not even complete, but it kind of shows you what it would look like. I did this one in I Love This Yarn, Aegean stripe. It's the print, and see, this is kind of the pattern it was coming out with. So different yarns will make different type of patterns. or you can change the colors yourself and make different designs or whatever by changing the colors. But anyway, I just wanted to show you, and that's how you do a basic, just a basic corner to corner stitch. This is, and like I said, you don't have to use the grid. I just thought maybe the little grid would help you kind of see what the blanket was doing, or the shape it's making as it increases and then decreases. Like I said, once you get this stitch down, you won't need that. You're just keep increasing until you get to the where the measurement of the two sides that you wanted. You know, if you want a baby blanket to be 36 inches, you keep increasing until you have two sides, your straight sides that are 36 and 36, and then you start decreasing to fill out the other end of your square. I can do a further tutorial to show you what you would do to make a rectangular shape if anybody is interested in that. Of course, it wouldn't be as long as this tutorial because it's the same basic premise, except that when you start your decreasing, what you need to do. So, but I can do that if anybody's interested in wanting me to make another tutorial showing how to make a rectangular shape. And then in the future, if people are interested, I could even do a simple Graphghan and how I follow my chart and things to make that. So anyway, thanks for coming along on this tutorial. I hope that it will help you be more comfortable doing the corner to corner stitch, and that you'll have fun with it. So I guess that's it. So I'll talk to y'all later. Thanks for watching. Bye.